All right, ready for something huge?
Always.
This time, we're heading to Brittany, France, to explore something even bigger than Stonehenge.
Bigger, you say?
Yeah, picture Stonehenge, but like 3 times the size, and way more variety.
Wow. Okay, I'm intrigued. What is this?
The Carnac Stones.
Ah, the Carnac Stones. Of course.
Over 3,000 standing stones,
Hmm.
burial mounds, tombs.
Hmm.
It's the biggest collection like this in the world, built, way before the pyramids.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it, the scale of it?
Yeah. It makes you wonder, who were these people?
Right. What made them decide to erect all these massive stones?
What was their purpose? I mean, was it some kind of message?
A message to who? Or maybe an astronomical observatory.
Right, or something else. Something we haven't even thought of.
That's what's so fascinating about these ancient sites. They challenge our modern perspectives, you know? They make us see the world through the eyes of people from thousands of years ago.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. You mentioned standing stones, mounds, tombs. Can we like list out the types of structures we're talking about?
Sure. The most well-known are the alignments, these massive rows of standing stones. There are 3 main groups: Menec, Kermario, and Kurleskan. Menec is the biggest, with 11 rows stretching over a kilometer, like a giant avenue.
11 rows. Can you even imagine walking down that?
It's really something, and each alignment is unique. Kermario, for example, has a fan-like pattern, almost as if they're converging on a point.
Hmm.
And then Kurleskan, the smallest of the 3, still has 555 stones.
555. That's still a lot of stones. Okay, so those are the rows. But then there are the burial mounds too, right? You called them tumuli, right?
That's right. And these aren't your average burial mounds. Some are huge, like the Saint Michel mound. It's 125 meters long, 60 meters wide, and 12 meters high. Practically a hill. And inside, they found chambers, stone chambers, filled with amazing artifacts.
Oh, like what kinds of artifacts? Tools and things.
More than just tools. I mean, they found things like jade axes. Some of them were huge, would have taken over 1,000 hours to make. And jewelry made from calais, a type of turquoise.
Turquoise.
Yeah. Not even found in Brittany. It had to be imported from Iberia. That's modern-day Spain and Portugal.
Wait, so they were trading with people hundreds of miles away
Yeah.
back then. That's crazy.
Right. It really changes how we think about these societies, doesn't it? The skill, the trade routes, the sheer scale of what they built.
Hmm.
It points to a level of sophistication that we don't usually associate with, with Neolithic cultures.
And then on top of the alignments and the tumuli, there are the dolmens.
Really interesting structures. They're stone chambers made with large stones stood upright and then capped with a big flat stone on top. They used to be covered in earth mounds, but a lot of those mounds have eroded away over time, leaving the stone exposed.
So some of them have been standing there for thousands of years.
It's pretty incredible, and some are really well preserved. The Krakatoa dolmen, for instance, is still partially covered by its original cairn. That's the mound of stones that protected it. And inside, there are these really cool carvings.
Carvings, what kind?
Well, there are swirling designs and a prominent double axe symbol, almost human size.
A double axe. What was that about?
Well, in lots of ancient cultures, the axe was connected to divine power, especially power over life and death.
Makes sense.
So it might be a symbol of deities associated with the afterlife or a representation of the deceased's status.
Okay, so we've got alignments, massive rows of stones. We've got tumuli, these giant burial mounds with awesome artifacts inside. And we've got dolmens, these tomb-like structures with intricate carvings. So where do we start with all of this? How do we even begin to understand these stones?
Well, maybe the best place to start is with the legends. Because long before archaeologists were around, the local people already had their own explanations for these mysterious stones.
Oh, I love a good legend.
One popular legend says that Pope Cornelius was running away from pagan soldiers, and when they cornered him, he turned them all to stone. That's how the alignments were created.
So the stones are petrified pagan soldiers. That's a pretty vivid image.
Right. It shows how powerful these stones are, how they inspire stories and myths. There's even a local legend that connects them to King Arthur. It says that Merlin, the wizard, transformed a Roman legion into stone, which created the alignments.
Wow. Okay, so we have religious figures, wizards, petrified armies. These legends are awesome. But legends aside, what do we actually know about the people who built these structures? Like, when did they live? What was their society like?
Well, based on the evidence we have, the Carnac stones were built way back in the Neolithic period, around 3300 BC, maybe even earlier.
That's older than Stonehenge.
It is. And they were built by pre-Celtic people long before the Romans or even the Celts arrived in the region.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about a really old culture here. But what were they like? Were they hunter-gatherers? Farmers?
That's still a debate, actually. The tumuli, with their elaborate burials and all the cool stuff found inside, suggest a more settled agricultural society. Maybe a society with a hierarchy, led by powerful people. But we still have a lot to learn about their social organization and how they lived their lives.
It's just amazing to think that these stones, they've seen so much history. They hold clues to a whole culture that disappeared thousands of years ago. Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about. But first, I want to look closer at those alignments. What makes them so unique? What can they tell us about the people who built them?
Well, they're unique not just because of their size, but also because of their patterns and how they're oriented. Some researchers think they were aligned with events in the sky, like the solstices and equinoxes.
So, like, they might have been tracking the movements of the sun and stars, just like ancient astronomers.
It's a theory that's definitely been looked at. There's a long history of research trying to figure out if the Carnac stones were connected to astronomy.
Cool. Well, let's explore that. What have researchers learned about the astronomical significance of the stones? And how does that fit into our understanding of the people who built them?
Well, one of the early researchers was Alexander Thom. He was a Scottish engineer and astronomer. Back in the 1970s, he did a ton of work at Carnac, carefully measuring the stones and figuring out how they were placed.
Okay.
And he had some pretty out there theories. He thought that the people who built Carnac used a specific unit of measurement, which he called the megalithic yard.
A megalithic yard. What is that?
Well, Tom thought this megalithic yard showed that they had a really advanced understanding of geometry and astronomy. And he said this knowledge was shared by other megalithic builders all over Europe.
So they weren't just randomly putting up stones.
Not according to Tom.
Yeah.
He said the Carnac alignments were designed very specifically. They were like encoded astronomical knowledge, maybe even calendars or observatories.
Wow, so they were tracking the stars.
That's one idea. But, not everyone agrees with Tom's theories. Some archaeologists say that the alignments might have had more practical uses, like maybe they marked territory or defined ceremonial spaces.
Right, so maybe not everyone was looking at the stars.
Exactly. There's still debate about how important astronomy was to the people who built Carnac. It's a bit of a mystery.
Okay. So what are some other ideas about why they built these stones?
Well, some researchers think the stones, especially the alignments, could have been processional routes.
Processional route.
Yeah, like paths leading from one sacred place to another. Picture a big procession, people walking amongst these huge stones, taking part in a ritual that connected them to the cosmos and their ancestors.
Wow, that's powerful. It's like the stones are guiding you on a journey.
Right. And this idea of connection to the cosmos and to ancestors, it seems to be a common theme when we look at these ancient cultures.
It does, yeah. It's like they were trying to understand their place in the universe to find meaning.
Exactly. It's a very human thing to do.
It really is. It makes me wonder, what did they believe about the afterlife? I mean, what can these stones tell us about their beliefs about death and what happens after?
That's where the tumuli get really interesting. They give us a glimpse into their funeral practices and how they thought about the afterlife.
Right, we were talking about all those amazing artifacts found in the tumuli, the jade axes, and the jewelry. But what about the mounds themselves? What do they tell us?
Well, some of them, especially the really big ones like Saint Michel, they're so huge and complex, it makes you think they were more than just places to bury people.
Oh.
They were almost like monuments, expressions of power and prestige, maybe even symbolic representations of the cosmos.
So the shape of the mound, the size, how it's positioned, all of that could have meaning.
Yep, exactly. And then there's the fact that many of the tumuli have multiple burials, sometimes spanning generations. That suggests a strong emphasis on ancestors.
Ah, so they believe the dead still played a part in the lives of the living.
Probably. It's like they were building these lasting monuments, these connections to the past, so their ancestors wouldn't be forgotten.
To keep their memory alive.
Yeah, and the dolmens, with their tomb-like structure, may have served a similar purpose, like a place where the living could connect with the spirits of the dead.
So we've got the alignments, maybe used for processions and connecting to the cosmos. We've got the tumuli, honoring ancestors and expressing their beliefs about the afterlife. And then the dolmens, a link to the spirit world. It's like the Carnac Stones represent a whole system of beliefs, a way of seeing the universe.
That's a great way to put it. It reminds us that these aren't just stones. They're expressions of human creativity and spirituality. They give us a window into the minds of people who lived thousands of years ago. People who looked at the same stars we do and asked the same questions about life and death.
It's incredible to think they've stood for so long,
Mm.
through so much history.
Yeah. I mean, they've seen empires rise and fall, wars, all kinds of things, and yet they're still here, still mysterious.
It's like they're inviting us to keep searching, to keep trying to understand them.
That's right. And who knows what we might discover in the future? Maybe new technology or even just a lucky find will reveal more of their secrets. But even now, we can appreciate their beauty and think about all the mysteries they hold.
And we can't forget that these sites are fragile. They need our protection. Remember what happened in 2023 when those menhirs were destroyed?
Yeah, that was a tough reminder that even today, these ancient places aren't safe. We need to find a balance between progress and preservation.
Exactly. It's not just about having laws. It's about understanding how important these sites are, respecting them. They don't belong to one country or culture. They belong to everyone. They're part of our shared human story.
And think about how much they could teach us. If only they could talk.
Right. All the rituals, the secrets. It's amazing to think about.
But even without words, they tell us a lot. They tell us about a time when humans lived closer to nature, when they looked to the stars, when they built things that would last for thousands of years.
It's like a challenge to us to think about the future, to think about what we leave behind.
I agree. They remind us that we're not just inheriting the past, but also responsible for the future. We have to protect these places for everyone.
And hopefully by studying them, trying to understand the people who built them, we can learn something about ourselves too.
I think so. The Carnac Stones are more than just ruins. They show us something about being human, about searching for meaning, about our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, it's that link to the past that's so powerful. It reminds us that we're part of something so much bigger than ourselves, a story that's been going on for thousands of years.
And it's a story that's still being written, you know. We're adding our own chapter to it, just like the people who built Carnac added theirs.
But we face different challenges when it comes to protecting these places. We talked about what happened in 2023 when some of the menhirs were destroyed to make way for development.
Right, right. It was a real wake-up call. Even now, these ancient sites are vulnerable.
Yeah. And it's tough, isn't it? Finding that balance between the needs of today and preserving the past.
It is.
It's not just about laws either. It's about respect, about recognizing how important these places are. And, you know, they don't belong to just one country or culture. They belong to all of us. They're a part of human history.
Absolutely. Imagine if these stones could actually talk, though. Think what we could learn.
Oh, the stories they could tell.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
But even though they're silent, they still tell us a lot. They tell us about a time when people lived in a different way, more connected to nature. They looked to the stars. They built things to last.
It makes you think, you know, about the long term, about what we leave behind.
I agree. It's a good reminder that we're not just inheriting the past, but we're caretakers for the future, too. It's our job to protect these places, for everyone, not just us.
And I hope that by learning about them, trying to understand the people who built them, we can learn a little something about ourselves, too.
Me too. Because the Carnac Stones, they're more than just old ruins. They're like, a reflection of us, of what it means to be human, to search for meaning, to connect with something bigger.
Well, that brings us to the end of our look at the Carnac Stones. But I hope this isn't the end of your exploration. There's so much more to learn about them, so many theories, so many different interpretations. Maybe you could even visit them someday. See them for yourself.
And next time you're looking at the stars, think about those ancient builders. They saw the same sky. They wondered about the same things we do. And they left behind this incredible legacy that we can still learn from today.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay curious.